Welcome to my first ever reading vlog. I'm actually coming to you from the future, about a week and a half after I actually filmed this vlog. Towards the end of the vlog, I had started a new job that I wasn't expecting to have, and I had a family emergency. So I did not get to end the video off properly or start it for that matter. I forgot to do an intro, but this week this week that you're going to be viewing now, I decided to read 3 of my 5-star anticipated reads. I originally wanted to do this in a weekend or in 3 days, which was very overly ambitious even though the books are quite short. I think I was just a little too excited and thought I would get it done faster, but it did take me almost a week to complete the 3 books. So the lineup of books, the 3 5-star anticipated reads that I will be reading in this reading vlog are Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and third we had Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I really wanted a 5-star read to happen this month. To give you a little bit of a background on each novel, Open Water is a literary fiction romance. There's conversations on race, grief, living life as a black man, racial profiling, love, loss, vulnerability, patriarchy. There's so many themes surrounding this novel. When you watch this vlog, you'll see that I fully, going into it, thought it was really just a literary fiction romance. And then we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, where we're following a group of women who are like prisoners underground. They don't know how they got there. They're living in a cage that they haven't been able to escape from, and the main character doesn't remember anything from her past whatsoever. So she's kind of a blank slate character. No one understands how she even got there because she seems too young to even be within that group of women. They don't know if they're on Earth. They don't know anything pretty much. And the men who run this system that they're in underground do not speak to them. They're also not allowed to touch and so many different things, but this book is an exploration of so many things which will be discussed further. Yeah, and then our last 5-star read that I will be reading in this vlog is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I'm sure many of you are already very familiar with this book. It's a classic for a reason. It is a stepping stone for queer literature as well, written in, I think, 1956? But that is absolutely mind-blowing. Essentially, we're following a man named David from the US who is living in Paris at the time, and he has a sort of relationship with a woman, but she goes away during the novel, and during that time that she's away, he explores his sexuality, discusses his sexuality, and really struggles with it. He meets a man named Giovanni, and throughout the novel we follow their romance. I think this vlog starts right before I go to leave to read in a park, so that's where I'm gonna leave you guys off, and then I'll check in with you guys at the end of the video to share all my thoughts. So I just made it home. I decided to come back and eat lunch. I was getting way too hungry and I couldn't focus anymore. I was also heavily distracted by pigeons and very cute babies chasing pigeons. So I only got to about 40% of the way through the book. So I decided to come back and I'm probably just gonna continue reading here. If it gets too hot in here, I'll just read on the balcony as well. We have like a little patio set out there, but the book is going well. Thought we could chat about it while I make my sandwich. So we've got panini rossetti for the bread choice. We got some spinach for greens. I decided to use some pesto. This one doesn't have any cheese in it. It's actually vegan. But I just like it because it's very herby. Fresh tasting. Got some turkey, some Japanese mayo, a giant bottle. Like this thing is the size of my head. And then I think I'm gonna add some spicy olives. Now that I'm about 40% of the way through, things are finally starting to happen with our two main characters, and it's a bit of a slow burn, but it's very interesting. We're still dealing with a lot of conflicting feelings since the girl was unavailable and she was previously dating one of his best friends, which makes the situation more complex, but he is very blown away by this woman. It seems like it's very quickly turning into love, and the book keeps reiterating this feeling of ecstasy and just those moments where you're so in love you're forgetting everything else that is involved in this relationship with this person. In the beginning, I was also our main character was dealing with grief and not knowing how to balance your grief, but also supporting your parents as a young person. Those complex feelings that come with that are very interesting and very eloquently written about in this book. One thing that I'm really loving about the book so far is that the character keeps referencing different music, different plays, movies, books throughout that pertain to the situation he's in, or that inspire him, or that he's discussing with other people. And that part of it is so realistic to the day in the life of an artist. We consume so much media and are constantly inspired by so much media, so that part of it is so realistic to the character, and I really like that. So I just finished making my sandwich. It's looking green, and I'm gonna continue reading. If it looks dark in here, it's because I have the blinds down. I'm trying to avoid the sun because it's making this apartment even hotter, so that's why. But yeah, I'm hoping to finish in the next couple hours so I can continue. I'm probably gonna do Giovanni's room next, but I'm a mood reader, so we'll see where that goes. Girl. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. However, this sandwich I'm loving. The combination of olives and pesto is one of my favorite things. I think I'm going to start on dinner now. I'm more than halfway through the book, and I think I'm going to leave my thoughts for the end. So much more that's developed within the storyline, it completely excluded from the romance plotline. That has been very interesting. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to leave my thoughts for later. But for dinner, as you can tell, my hair, like, I'm not even bothering with the cute little side front pieces because it's too fucking hot. So I'm gonna start on dinner soon. I'm gonna be using this
farro. Sometimes when I get sick of having just like pasta and rice all the time, or like orzo or quinoa, sometimes I really just don't want quinoa. I just need some other grain alternatives. So farro it is. I really, really love the flavor of it. I usually get ones that have like bouillon already in them, or like a spice mix in them. So this will be the first time I'm cooking just plain farro, or farro. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but I have some veggie broth that I'm gonna cook it in, and then I think I'm going to make some honey glazed carrots and some chicken to go with it. Like, keep it simple. Yeah. Good morning. It is a new day. It is the next day. I didn't film my reactions to the second half of the book, or towards the end of the book, because I was just speechless at the progression of the book and everything that had happened. I think when it comes to the romance aspect of it, it really wasn't in the forefront of the story as much as I thought it would be, which is totally fine, because what the novel ended up exploring was much more important really than just the narrative of this relationship, even though it still was the main kind of plot of the story, and a lot of what was happening did affect that relationship. The book was so stunning. It continued to surprise me. It was also very devastating, and it honestly, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what Black men have to deal with day to day, especially when it comes to being profiled, dealing with cops, and just living in day-to-day life with fear. I haven't read anything that really captured the Black male perspective. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna leave my rating for the end of the video, my rating for each book. But yeah, it was an incredible read, and I would highly suggest reading it. It was a phenomenal book. It was absolutely stunning, and I definitely want to read more of his books. I think he has another one called Small Worlds, I believe. Small World? I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that. But next, I'm actually gonna read I Who Have Never Known Men. I started this last night, actually. Just the introduction, so I haven't gotten to the meat of the story, but the introduction was very interesting. It gave a little bit of explanation as to what the novel will be exploring, and I'm very excited to get into it. And then I think Giovanni's Room will be after this. We're gonna stay indoors today. It's quite gloomy outside, so yeah, homebody day. Hello, it is now the following day. Unfortunately, yesterday I was not feeling too good. It was a combination of life stuff and PMS. And whenever I combine any sort of stressor during the time I'm PMSing, it is a nightmare for me. So yesterday turned into a crying majority of the day type of day instead of being very productive, which is okay. I decided to give myself space to do that and time to do that yesterday. But however, even though I was feeling not too great yesterday, I did get through 43% of I Who Have Never Known Men, and wow. I don't know where to start. The perspective we're reading from, essentially a person with a blank slate, with no history, with no understanding of what human life was prior to being in this cage. So there's a group of 40 women underground in this bunker underground, and none of them know how they got there. Their memories were erased, whether that was from some sort of chemical or warfare or brainwashing or something. No one knows what had caused the situation to happen. They just have glimpses of things that don't really make sense to them. But our youngest character, which is our main character, is a teenager, and she is so young that they don't really understand how she could even be in this bunker. So my assumption is that she must have been born in the bunker, because she doesn't remember having a mom. She doesn't remember anything, which is so interesting as a perspective, because the way she observes life is so out of the norm. Because she doesn't have anything to base her thoughts and observations off of, other than what she knows and what she has been able to observe from the women around them. And even then, the women around her are not really giving her too much information on different aspects of life. And it's just been absolutely bizarre. I'm at a turning point in the novel where something drastic has happened. I don't want to give any spoilers in this vlog, but things are changing, and I really genuinely don't know what to expect. For some reason, I feel a little iffy on our main character. I don't know how she's going to behave or what she's capable of, because of the lack of, I don't want to say humanity, because she's a human, but like there's so much of human life that she's missed out on, and aspects of her development that she hasn't had a chance to explore at all. She's never been around anyone her own age. She hasn't been around other kids. She hasn't been in a relationship. She hasn't had friends. She hasn't done any of the usual normal human interactions that we have. And also there's this question of, are they even on planet Earth? Are they on Earth? What is going on? I can't believe this book is under 200 pages, because it feels like I'm reading like an epic fantasy dystopian novel. So I'm not sure where this is going to go and how it's going to end. The writing is phenomenal. I understand why people think of this as a 5-star read, and I'm excited to talk about it further when I finish, and of course my final review and rating at the end of the vlog. But I'm gonna get back to it now that I'm feeling a little bit better. But we are gonna stay home again, homebodies, because PMS. Yeah, time to get cozy and keep on reading. I just wanted to mention one of the questions that really stood out to me in the introduction of the novel, which was, how much of our humanity is intrinsic? How much remains when all else is stripped away? I think that is really the main question of the novel, and there's so many aspects and characteristics of these characters that make me feel like this whole thing is very much an experiment of survival and observing humanity, because the women that they picked in this group of 40 women are all from different places, and they purposely picked women that have no relation to each other, that would not know each other, are not from the same place, or from different countries even. And for some reason, they're all from backgrounds where they weren't very educated. So there needs to be some sort of reason behind why they selected this particular group of women and why one of them is this blank slate, and what that has to do with humanity being this intrinsic thing, or is it something that you have to participate in and learn to in order to be human. I don't know. There's so many questions to be asked, but I just wanted to mention that before I continue. And also there's the question of, because she is, these human qualities have been stripped away from her, what will happen with her within this group of women? Will she ever belong? Will there be misunderstandings? Will this cause serious issues within this group of women in their survival together? And can human qualities and social skills and all of those things be learned even if you've never even been part of a society? Like, I don't know, like there's so many questions to be asked, and that's why this character is so interesting, because she feels so unpredictable. Even in the way she's processing her thoughts and observations of each of the characters, when her thoughts change or she's given new information, I really genuinely don't know how she's going to react. So freaking interesting. Okay, I'm gonna get back to it now before I just keep rambling on forever. Just coming on here to give you guys a little update. I am 60% of the way through. I had to take a break to make dinner, and I think I'm gonna watch a movie right now with my dinner and then end the night with the end of the book. I don't really feel like rushing it. It's getting so interesting, and I truly don't know how it's gonna end. So many aspects of this book are devastating, just like Open Water was. So I think after reading these 3 5-star predictions, I think I'm gonna need like some sort of fluffy romance, or I don't know, something to get my mind off of how serious both of these novels have been, and I'm sure Giovanni's Room will be the same. But I'm gonna contradict myself by saying I'm gonna be watching Iron Claw. But sometimes I don't know, torture myself with sad movies and sad books all the time. But I love it. I love it. I appreciate a good sad story. I made some sort of Asian ground chicken rice bowl. I've got my kimchi, more hot sauce because I'm a fiend for spicy, and a Verner's, if you guys don't know what this is. It is a ginger ale that's just very gingery. It's delicious. And then I'll talk to you guys later and catch you up when I'm done. Hi everyone, it is now the following day. I had a pretty eventful evening, so I didn't really get a chance to talk about my reaction to the book. I ended up finishing it quite late. I didn't end up watching Iron Claw. I got way too distracted by wanting to know what happened in this book, and then so many other life things got in the way last night and this morning as well. Good things, at least. It is almost 5 p.m. now. I have not started Giovanni's Room, which is the final book. Remember when I said that this was only gonna be a weekend excursion, a weekend reading vlog? That didn't happen, clearly. It is Tuesday. I, who have never known men, made me so existential last night when I had finished that book. It was so morbid. There's so many things, and I'm excited to discuss that at the end of the video. Left me confused, utterly confused, and yeah, it was an absolutely stunning read. I'm not surprised why people love this book so much. But however, I can see why some people would not enjoy this book. particularly if you're the type of person that needs a plot, a clear plot. This is very plotless. And number 2, who needs their questions answered, because that is not going to happen. So if you're okay with an open-ended, plotless, philosophical ride, then this is the book for you. But if not, you're going to absolutely hate this. I, however, love anything that's plotless and philosophical, so it worked very well for me. I'm currently writing my notes on the book in Notion. I'm only doing that for book club that I host on Fable, just to make it a little bit easier to write down all my quotes, and a lot quicker too. And then I'm gonna add all my thoughts in Fable, my review in Fable, and later on this evening I'm gonna start Giovanni's Room. We probably won't finish it, but there's a chance we might get to it tomorrow as well. Very excited to get into it. I know already that the writing is beautiful. As I've said, I've read about a third to half of the book previously. I don't exactly remember where I had left off. I'm ready for writing that's a little bit more flowery, a little bit more lyrical, poetic, whereas I Who Have Never Known Men was absolutely stunning, to say the least, but not as poetic and lyrical as, for example, Open Water, which we read. I'm finally excited to read James Baldwin. I feel like a hypocrite because what you guys might not know is that one of my favorite directors of all time is Barry Jenkins, and one of my favorite movies of all time is by him, which is If Beale Street Could Talk. Not read the book the movie is about, which is a James Baldwin book, so that's another one that is a must read for me that needs to happen. I'm gonna write my book club notes, and when I get to Giovanni's Room, I will update you guys. Hi everyone, I'm jumping in to give a little update on Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I am almost halfway through now, and I'm so happy I'm reading this now because I finally feel ready to read it. I am flying through it. I don't know if you guys get this way too, but sometimes you pick up a book and you're like, I am not gonna appreciate this right now. It is the wrong time for me to be reading this. And there's nothing better you can do in that moment than to put the book down and pick it up when the time feels more right to be reading it. And right now the time is right, and I'm really enjoying this beautiful writing. We're following David in 1950s Paris, and straight off the bat we are introduced into his complex feelings about his manhood, his sexuality, his complicated relationship with his father, who has lost his wife, and of course our main character lost his mother at a very young age. And so there's a slew of complex relationships in his life, originating in the US, and now he's in Paris, pretty much wandering around, promising himself to a woman, but knowing deep down that there is this unresolved situation, but he is ashamed of that, ashamed of his sexuality. And so we're introduced to several more characters who play a role in David's meeting of a character named Giovanni, and we very soon in the story are told that something horrible occurs to Giovanni and that our main character is at fault in a way for what had happened to him. And yeah, so far it's been quite beautiful. I also, for some reason, the first time I tried to read this, the humor went over my head, and honestly, there's so many moments in this that are quite hilarious and quirky. I'm really enjoying the characters that have been introduced. They're all very complex, morally gray, and just very interesting, because I feel like they serve as a mirror to our main character David of what could happen or what his life could look like in the future if he doesn't confront his sexuality and what he wants out of life, essentially. Yeah, this is absolutely stunning, beautiful so far, and I'm very excited to finish it. There is a strong chance I might be able to finish this tonight, since I'm almost halfway through already. It is the evening already. Actually, no, I'm wrong. It is the afternoon already, so I don't have crazy amount of time because I have to work as well, but I can't stop thinking about it, so I'm excited to get back into it. Hello, you made it to the end. Welcome to the end of the vlog. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching my first ever reading vlog. And I'm so excited to finally share my thoughts. I wrote a bunch of notes down in my laptop. I am a heavy Notion user, if you guys use Notion. Yeah, it's just the best. I need to organize my life. Anyway, so to get started, open water. This book was so immensely poetic. It was absolutely beautiful. It was definitely not what I was expecting whatsoever. I was expecting, I think my mind, whenever I think about like literary fiction, romance, I think of Sally Rooney. And so, or anything kind of similar to Sally Rooney. So that's where my mind was at, but it ended up being not like that at all. I think there were some elements of it that could be compared to Sally Rooney, more so just the layered and complex characters and how their relationship is not linear or simple. It's quite complicated, but this book in particular focused a lot on so many heavy elements. I think it's good to read the trigger warnings before getting into this book because it is a little heavier than I thought it would be. In the book, we started off discussing grief and processing grief with your family and what that looks like and how difficult it is to comfort your parents,
that are going through grief, but also dealing with your own grief. And in the sense, this carries us into the discussion of family roles and patriarchy. And in this particular book, our main character's dad is relatively emotionally unavailable, and so in the novel, he is also kind of fathering his sibling, his young brother. And with that introduction, it allows us to kind of gauge what kind of character we're dealing with throughout the novel. And then slowly comes in this romance that he has, and how vulnerable you become when you become romantically entangled with someone that really, really understands you, that opens you up, and in the process of that, opening up your wounds that you haven't really dealt with. And so that was a really interesting aspect, especially for men who bottle things up and are conditioned to not address problems, and then when they need to be vulnerable, it's extremely difficult for them. That is something that gets carried throughout the novel so beautifully in so many different situations and things that happen and in the development of this relationship. One thing I really loved about this novel is the main character and his love interest are both artists, but he's constantly referencing different media and different art that motivates him, that inspires him, that he relates to. Even like some of the songs feel like such a representation of what is actually going on throughout the novel. It would be so fun to actually reread this and listen to a playlist of all the songs I've seen. I think it was on Reddit, someone posted a list of all the songs. It could have been Goodreads, I'm not sure. A list of all the songs that are mentioned in the book. And this is so accurate to being an artist. Like, there's not a day where I'm not consuming some sort of art form. I really liked that aspect of it. We have really similar taste, which was really awesome. He mentions one of my favorite directors of all time, Barry Jenkins. If you don't know him by name, he directed Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk. If Beale Street Could Talk is one of my favorite movies of all time, and so I'm a huge fan of his work. And so he mentioned him a couple times in the book, and I was like, oh my god, like, we could be friends right now. We really could. And he also mentions listening to Blonde by Frank Ocean for the first time, and I know that, like, those of us who are Frank Ocean fans on here remember that time of listening to Blonde and where we were, the memories associated with that album. I don't know. And I had to, but I wore my Blonded t-shirt for the vlog just because of this book. So if you are interested in any of those artists, he mentions Kendrick Lamar as well. I know he mentions Zadie Smith quite a few times, which I enjoy her writing, but I'm a little conflicted on her as a person right now. If you've read the New Yorker article, you know what I mean. Most importantly, out of everything in this book, what truly ended up being the center of the story was the Black male experience and just living in fear of being profiled, of dealing with violence, and just being perceived in such a negative way and being in harm's way because of it. And the trauma of that is explored very heavily throughout this novel. And I realized while I was reading this, I haven't read enough books like this that discuss the Black male lived experience. Like, I haven't. So if you guys have any recommendations on other novels like this, I would love to read more. That was very eye-opening and also jarring, and it really affected every aspect of our main character's life throughout the novel. But as for final thoughts, It was so phenomenal. It was beautifully written. It's definitely a book I can see myself reading again. It was very poetic. So if you're into poetic writing, like for example, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, very similar to that. Very, very poetic and beautiful. I think the only criticism I had, and this is a very personal preference thing, is that sometimes the poetic writing actually took me out of the story and of the pacing of the story. So I would kind of lose focus and I would have to keep rereading and trying to get back into the story. But I think that really was just a me thing, just a personal preference thing. I found that happened in On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, but not as much when reading this book. I don't know if there was just more of it, or if it was just a me thing. But I think the poeticness, the poetic writing in this novel really made the aspect of reading from a main character who's an artist more believable, because as artists we tend to be observers and search for meaning in things, and so being so descriptive and so poetic really enhanced the experience of reading this book. And so in the end, I thought long and hard about this. I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was not a 5-star read for me, but it was so close. And it's definitely a novel where in a few months, if I'm still thinking about it, it could be bumped up to a 5-star. But I've overall really enjoyed this, and I highly recommend you pick this up. It's definitely one of the best reads of the year, and I definitely want to reread it in the future and listen to the playlist for this book. Next we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. And oh my god, this was the book club pick for the month as well. It was a smash, to say the least. It was a hit in the book club. It was very enjoyable. It was so thought-provoking, so beautifully written, so bold. I don't even know what else to say. It was so ambiguous. So once again, we followed this group of women, and not only did we continue to not have our questions answered, but that kind of became more and more of the point of the novel itself. It really allowed the themes of the novel to be on the forefront and less of like any sort of plot or outside influences to govern the novel. So we really explored things like human nature, grief, death, love, power. I've never seen anything written in this way where the environment really allowed these themes to blossom. It allowed us to explore them, and not even in such a way where our themes, the questions about our themes are answered, but really they garner conversation, which was so enjoyable, especially in a book club format. If you're looking for a book to add to a book club that you're running, this is such a great option. So the question really that was asked was, how much of our humanity is intrinsic and how much remains when all is stripped away? And truly, I think that regardless of how much of this main character's identity was not fully formed and didn't have the environment to be fully formed as like a member of society, she was still innately human. She was not an alien, but it took her time to understand, and even if she didn't understand some aspects of humanity, she was still curious enough to learn. And I think that part of that is so human in itself. So I want to share a quote, my favorite quote in the book, my favorite passage, but I'm going to do that after I give you my final thoughts and my rating, just in case you want to skip over the quote if it's going to spoil stuff for you. It's a little bit spoilery. So yeah, you could skip to Giovanni's room after my rating. This was absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was having a existential crisis because I had finished it pretty late at night. And I was just stunned. I had really, really weird dreams. Very, very weird dreams. There's so many moments in this novel. I was fighting back tears. My heart dropped into my stomach. And I think like all of those things are a recipe for a 5-star read for me. And in fact, this was the first 5-star read of this vlog. I was so happy. This is definitely one of those books that I will be revisiting. I want to reread this again because there's so many elements of it I think that can be missed in the first reading of it. There's so much to be discussed in it, so much to be understood, and I think as we age too, there's even more to be understood from it. So maybe in a few years I will pick it back up again, but yes, this was a 5 out of 5-star read for me. So I'm gonna read my favorite quote now, and then we'll move on to Giovanni's room. It was only at the moment of death that they admitted their despair and rushed headlong towards the great dark doors that opened for them, leaving the sterile plain where their lives had gone awry without a backwards glance, eager to embrace another world which perhaps didn't exist. But they preferred nothingness to the futile succession of empty days. And I know that at that moment they loved me. Like, oh my God. I feel triggered reading that again. I genuinely do. I just want to cry. Alright. Time for Giovanni's room. Last but not least, we have Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This was so beautifully written, which I was 100% expecting. Oh my God, guys, I'm losing my ability to speak. It was heart-wrenching, it was infuriating, but it was such a revolutionary read for 1956, which makes total sense considering how in depth this novel went when it comes to exploring sexuality, the shame, the grief, the complex feelings that one has when they are exploring their sexuality, and even more complex being in 1956 where there's no representation of healthy queer relationships. There's no relatively low acceptance in society when it comes to queer relationships, especially considering our main character is American. Even though he is in Paris at the time, and in the novel it is not illegal for him to engage in queer relationships, it is in the US, so there's that aspect of it that he carries with him as well. David was, let's just say, I wasn't expecting such morally gray characters, and I think that like took me aback for a second because I was expecting like this moving love story. Like I was like ready for like a Call Me by Your Name, like steamy, like, and then like devastating, which this was, but it was so much more than that. Even Giovanni, which is the love interest of David in the novel, was also very morally gray. There was so much misogyny ingrained in his character that also could be an argument for his innate shame, that even though he is a lot more outwardly queer within the novel, he still holds some sort of negative feelings towards himself and also towards women. But it also made him feel more real. Like, guys, this is 1956. Like, I had to keep reminding myself throughout the novel, like, this is 1956 that this was written. Also, David was just so infuriating. I could not get behind anything he was doing. Majority of his thoughts, he was very, as much as he was very vulnerable in what he was exploring and what his emotions were, and it was so complex. The other side of it, he was an extremely selfish character. Like, I just wanted to grab him and go, David, stop! Just freaking love him, be with him, get over yourself. This is why the novel is so beautiful, because it is so infuriating. Like, there's so many emotions to be had when reading this novel, and it's absolutely beautiful. The setting being Paris. Yeah, this novel really surprised me. I think I was surprised actually with all of these novels, and I'm coming to realize that I really purposely do not read into the description of the novels too much because I want to be surprised. And you know what? It's going good for me. It's really going good, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of reading. But I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. Another 5-star read. I can't believe that I got 2 out of 3 5-stars, and it could possibly be 3, because the more I marinate on open water, the more it's just like it's getting there for me, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you guys do this, but after a few months, I go back and I change the rating. Change the rating to some of the books that I read, because genuinely I change my mind after some time. I come to my senses. Most of the time it's giving a book 5 stars. Thank you for getting to the end of this video. If you made it to the end, thank you. This was a very successful first vlog. If you have any feedback for me, I would love that. I do want to get better at these, and I'm probably going to start filming another one tomorrow. So with time, these will be even better. But thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me in any sort of way, since I don't make money, obviously, off of this, I have linked my social media stuff down below. I'm also on TikTok. I also have an Amazon book wish list if you want to support me by donating a book. That also is not necessary. That is just there if it's just there. I will also try, I just decided this earlier today, I want to link at least one charity every single time I make a video to donate to, if you'd like. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm very excited to make more of these. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you've read any of these books, please let me know and what your thoughts are. And I highly recommend all 3 of these. They were so phenomenal. I don't think I'm going to be able to top this reading month, to be honest, just because of this challenge. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!